Thank you all for joining us today. My name is Josh Asbury. I'm the COO here at Infinity Software Solutions. To kind of recap what these sessions are, we try to do these every 2 weeks, and these are just recurring webinars that are driven by our customers, questions that you have, things that you would like for us to cover. Past webinars, we covered the updates to the load list. We have done overviews of how QuickBooks and accounting integration work with BrokerPro. And during last week, or the last session that we did, the attendees asked that we do an overview of how LTL works within BrokerPro. And so Forrest and I were discussing, like, geez, what should we cover? How do we cover this? And we thought, man, let's ask Banyan, because they know LTL a heck of a lot better than we do. And as opposed to just showing you the functionality that BrokerPro and Banyan have together, our friends at Banyan offered up their services to help educate us, educate all of us on how to improve our businesses, how to improve your revenue, and really how to attack the LTL market. So thankfully, we have Alex Riga from Banyan here with us, and Alex is going to do a brief presentation on all things LTL. And then we will finish today's session with Forrest showing really just how simple the integration is between BrokerPro and Banyan, so that so you can book LTL loads and get quotes and all that good stuff. So with all that said, I will hand the baton over to Alex, and I will go on mute and serve as a resource as needed. Note that during this presentation, I will put in a poll towards the end of our webinar to ask what you all want to cover during the next session. And also, I encourage you to please ask questions inside of the Q&A. We will address them all at the end, or if they're really relevant to the flow, I'll interrupt Alex or Forrest and make sure that we get those questions addressed in real time. So all that said, Alex, the stage is yours.
Appreciate it, Josh. Thanks for having us on the webinar. Get you in front of you guys as customers. Really happy to be here and help educate and guide on navigating the LTL market, and then sharing what the Banyan BrokerPro partnership allows BrokerPro users to do. I am going to share a PowerPoint, kind of use that as a guide. So let me get that going here. So for those in the audience who don't know, Banyan Technology has been around for about 20 years. We started out as the first company to pull LTL rates out of carriers' websites. We called it web scraping at the time, into other pieces of software. And over time, that evolved into connecting directly into LTL carriers directly via API, which allows us to rate, dispatch, track, and document retrieval for all LTL loads with the major carriers that have that front-end API, which is most of them. As time went on, we ended up creating a TMS that was centered around LTL. And what we do with our BrokerPro partnership is we take the functionality of that LTL TMS and integrate it fully into BrokerPro, which allows the BrokerPro users to execute LTL and full truckload and everything else they do inside of BrokerPro, all inside of one UI and UX. So before we get too far into the technology itself, I do want to share some sort of kind of the state of the industry for LTL. If you want to go ahead and go to the next slide, Josh. And then you can go straight to the next one. So what we have here, and you might kind of have to lean in to look at this a little bit, but this is a report from Raymond James Investment Bank. They do kind of an executive freight trends every single year. And what you'll see on the left is the 5-year growth in the dark blue bar. And then you'll see, the annual growth or lack of growth on the right there. So what this is basically saying is something that most of us in the room know, is that truckload has gotten a little stagnant. It's still grown a lot over the last few years, but maybe it's starting to normalize. LTL and asset light and rail, on the other hand, are actually still growing this year. And if you look down at the bottom where it talks about the actual EBITDA growth rates by sector, which is, the fancy accounting term for, okay, is this actually making a profit? LTL is up almost 20%, while the rest of the industry is a little flat. So what we're seeing is, a lot of big time 3PLs and brokers are turning their attention towards the LTL market as a way to capture additional revenue by working with the same customer base, just because maybe truckload only is really just not cutting it right now in today's market. Go next, Josh. At our customer conference this year, we had a consultant come in called Kevin Huntsman. He runs this consulting firm called Massio and Company, and they essentially work directly with all the LTL carriers and get direct access to their shippers and have them complete anonymous surveys. As you can see here, this is over 1,700 responses, and what this is an identification of stated needs from the customer overall. And why I'm showing you guys this today is it's not actually the pricing that's number one. What's most important is that shipments are delivered on time and not damaged, and that the carrier is trustworthy. I bring this up because when you enter into LTL as a new 3PL or a new broker, it's very difficult to have competitive pricing. That's one of the differences between full truckload. Your strategy to get good prices on loads and full truckload is completely different than LTL. But it's important to remember that you're not always necessarily selling on price, which is also true in full truckload. But here we kind of basically have an understanding from the shipper's perspective what is actually most important. And a couple areas I wanted to highlight is that when you have an API-enabled LTL offering, you're able to give freight tracking. You're able to report on transit time. It makes ease of doing business much better. And this sort of transparency makes the BrokerPro portal with LTL rates in it a better offering, way to pick up business. You can go next, Josh. And then here we have a map of some of the most popular household name carriers in the LTL industry. As some of you guys are thinking about getting into LTL or you're currently already in it, this information is relevant because this is from the perspective of a shipper. So whatever carriers you partner with end up actually being a representation of your brand as a broker or a 3PL. So you can kind of see the little quadrants where it's an inferior offering, a premium offering, economy, or superior there, which is basically, if you kind of think about, you can't be cheap, good, and fast, right? So everybody's going to have strengths and weaknesses around this bell curve. So FedEx Freight, while they're extremely popular and move a high percentage of volume in the industry, they're not very well liked. And on the other hand, you have folks like Old Dominion, who are very well received by the customers, but it's an expensive service. So as you guys try to strategize and figure out what's the best carrier partner for you and your brokerage, you got to look back at your shippers and consider what's important to them. Is it rock bottom prices? Is it transit time? Is it overall experience? And that's going to sort of dictate what carriers you choose to partner with. If you go with T-Force, that's an economy offering, but you're not necessarily selling on price, you're selling on service, then maybe that's not the best fit for you. But in reality, it's usually a combination of all things, right? People say that customer service is important, but they're not going to pay 25% of our market rate, right? Just so they can have warm and fuzzy feelings. Same for the opposite. Nobody wants to get the best price on the freight, and then have to deal with more claims, inaccurate billings, so on and so forth. You can go next, Josh. And this is kind of that same data, but just in a different format here. So tier ones are companies that fall into the promoter category, where not only do shippers use them, they're willing to promote them to people they know in the industry. Tier two are the neutrals. We don't love them, we don't hate them. And then tier three are, we kind of have a problem with them. And if you go and look at the tier three, you'll see, there's T-Force, what I was just talking about, FedEx, who's, a titan in the space. So you're kind of going to get a bad reputation when you're really doing that much business. And then folks like Central and Cross Country, which are known for low prices, but maybe they're not the best, service option. We feel like when we sign up people for LTL TMSs, or we're working with our shippers and our 3PLs, we see, the carriers in tier 1 and 2 also being more popular, so it lines up with what our own customers are saying. And another thing I'll notice there is, you see how Dayton Freight Lines is tier 1. You'll find success by finding carriers that are regional and they're super strong in their region. So that applies to Dayton Freight, Southeastern Freight Lines. Those types of companies do really well in their region. So you can kind of have an approach where, hey, I've got a few regional carriers that do really well, and I've got a few national carriers that I'm able to get blanket rates. So this way I have a menu of offerings for each shipper that I work with. Next slide, please. This might be the most important slide to you guys. Quite simply, do you use a third party or a broker for any LTL services? It's kind of a misnomer in the industry that shippers just want to work directly with carriers. But you'll see that that's really only true about 58% of the time, and it's like a 60-40 split. And there's a reason why. Maybe they don't have the staff to support it. Maybe they don't have the volume to justify, getting customer-specific pricing, or they're not able to. So a 3PL oftentimes is the best option for many shippers in the market. And this data says it's, about 40% of them. Next slide. And here we are going to look at the same data based on load volume. So as load volume from a shipper goes up, you typically have a more robust transportation department and a higher freight spend. So when they have that higher freight spend, they gain some leverage over the carriers, and it's easier for them to work directly with the carriers. You'll kind of see that drop off at over 150. So once people start doing over 150 shipments a week, 600 a month, they're kind of in that bandwidth where they start to gain the power to go directly to the carriers and have some nice CSPs or blanket rates internally. But as soon as you go below that, 100 to 150, 50 to 100, you see a big spike in who's actually using a 3PL. The reason for that is they're just not going to have that competitive of pricing, especially if their freight is transactional. Like if they run an e-commerce distribution center and every piece of freight is somewhat different and it goes all over the country, good luck going straight to a carrier as a shipper when you do 100 shipments a month and say, hey, I want a really great tariff. It just doesn't work that way. So anytime someone signs up for Banyan and they're doing 50, 100 shipments a month LTL, along with whatever else they may be doing, I constantly suggest, hey, you should go and sit down with a 3PL and see what kind of rates that you can get. It also allows them to bypass the carrier vetting process, which is quite the process, right? You're going to go and form vendor relationships with 9, 10 carriers. You can rate shop every single one of them when you don't really have that good of rates to begin with. you're best off just working with your full truckload broker or an LTL 3PL and piggybacking off what they're able to provide to you. Next slide, please. So here we have the primary 3PL providers for LTL. Up at the top, we have Priority One and Worldwide Express. Those are household names. They do a little bit of everything. They can cover full truckload, maybe even parcel, but they're known for LTL. We actually have a partnership with Priority One at Banyan. And I bring that up because another key difference between full truckload and LTL is LTL, 4PLing is encouraged. When you say that you're a 3PL or a broker and you go and sit down with Worldwide Express and Priority One or CH Robinson, they're usually happy to empower you and let you sort of piggyback off their blanket rates, where in the full truckload world with fraud and all the stuff that's going on with MC numbers and double brokering, that's just not a thing, right? And it would be terrible for the business if it would be. But LTL is much more consolidated, so there is the opportunity for full truckload brokers that have the relationship with shippers to partner with the right 3PLs to start an LTL program. Part of the reason why that is popular is because it is hard to start an LTL program, just for the same reason that it's hard for the shippers to kind of go out and work with 8 or 9 different carriers at once. Also worth highlighting is the biggest bar on this whole entire sheet is the others bar. And that's important because, yes, as you offer LTL brokerage services, you are going to run into some giants in the space, maybe more so than you would in full truckload, right? So yeah, you'll be competing against Priority One, Worldwide, CH, but some of those guys have bad reputations, and they just have, here's your local account rep, right? This industry is all about referrals, networking, and relationship, and that's where a lot of you have found success. So it's the same story for LTL. Most of the people on this survey, when it was all compiled, there was a ton of companies that I had never even heard of, and that's how that other category built up to 51%. Next slide. Another very important slide to me working for a TMS company and to you guys in the audience is transportation management software being utilized in the LTL space? If it's not, they, similar to full truckload, or call, email, or they're going to log into 6 or 7 different carriers' websites. That takes a long time. It's not necessarily efficient. So if you have an LTL offering as a BrokerPro user, you can put a BrokerPro customer-facing portal in a shipper's hands. So there's a 50-50 shot that they're open to working with a 3PL for LTL services. And then there's another 50-50 shot that they don't actually have a piece of technology in place to sort of consolidate and organize their shipping efforts in LTL. So that's the first thing I would ask when you're dealing with your own customer base is, are they playing phone call and email with LTL carriers for 75 loads a month, and they don't necessarily have the best price in place, and it kind of takes a long time, and they're open to working with the 3PL because they're already working with you already for full truckload or drayage or whatever else service you may be providing? Those are ideal candidates to give a customer-facing portal to. And what you'll see also is the likelihood of UTMS software is going over time. If you want to have a professional LTL offering, you need to do is put a customer portal into your shipper's hands. And then as time goes on, when they think LTL, they get used to the log portal. And as your offering becomes more sophisticated, you start doing things like, oh, well, you do have a CSP, a customer specific price, that's their account, and you use me as a 3PL. Well, how about we just take your Estes account and put it inside of the customer-facing portal, so you still have access to Estes and my services all in one platform. So you should be able to supply quality of life and technology along with your freight brokerage services. Next slide, Josh. Okay, now we're going to kind of go into what yeah, that slide was perfect. What our integration actually does. So Live Connect is what we call Banyan's web service offering, which is where we take our LTL rating API engine and connect it into BrokerPro. So it's going to allow you to rate, dispatch, track, generate documents, manage invoices, and pull reporting, all while sending this information back into BrokerPro. So, automated bill of lading, assigned proof of delivery back from the carrier, pulling tracking back to the BrokerPro system. Why is this valuable? You put a customer-facing portal in your and now they can not only have more quality of life for booking the shipments and rate shopping, they have tracking right at fingertips. Tracking in the LTL world is just much easier than full truckload. You don't necessarily have to go through a third-party provider like Trucker Tools, MacroPoint, Project 44. If you have API to the LTL here, you have tracking. So you'll get a lot of milestones there as well. So very useful. Next slide. Why does it matter to have real-time carrier access? Like, what's really the point of API, right? Like, you could load in a rate table, and you could put in a Zarlite. You could use base rates and rateware. Why do API? So as you get into, and I'm kind of go off what the slide is saying here a little bit. As you venture into LTL, you'll run into a lot more work with contract management. And you get your tariff and your rule sheet from your carrier, and the carrier uses Rateware 98, and the other carrier uses Rateware 2001, and it kind of becomes a mess of how do I manage all this, and then I get GRIs, and when I'm rating my freight, the rate doesn't actually match the tariff from the carrier, so now I got to use a freight audit and pay company just to make sense of all of this. If you have an API connection straight from the carrier, you don't have to worry about all that because it's not going to be wrong because you're pulling off of your tariff, which is housed by the carrier. So there's no chance for it to get messed up because you're pulling straight out of their system. All you have to worry about is some of the other tricky parts of LTL, missed accessorials, that sort of thing. That is no fun. It's a learning curve for sure. So that's sort of the core reason why API has gotten very popular is you don't have to deal with contract management. Tracking becomes easier, and then you're rating in real time. Rating in real time gives you access to what's called dynamic pricing, which is another strategy that I suggest any emerging LTL 3PL take advantage of. Dynamic pricing is simply when carriers are looking for capacity, the price goes down in real time. ABF, Southeastern, Saia, there are big name carriers out there that have a dynamic pricing program. And so what that allows you to do is, my tariff with Southeastern maybe isn't the best, but you know what? 1 out of 15 shipments, they come back with an amazing rate because they need the freight. So the rate comes down. So that's another advantage of API. So it's the tracking, real-time rating, dynamic pricing, and then you get to bypass contract management, which is no fun. Next slide, please. So here is kind of some napkin math, if you will, on how this can save time. This is another selling point on putting a customer-facing portal with LTL rates in a shipper's hands. In the same way that, and you guys have all been there, sometimes it takes a while to get particular loads out the door for whatever reason. On the LTL side, if you are using a portal and you're pulling rates from all the carriers at once and the rates get sorted by lowest cost or lowest transit time, you're simply just picking what carrier you want to use 20, 30 seconds after you input the load information, which is much, much faster. So that's a selling point for getting a portal in someone's hands. If someone in the transportation department at a shipper is, you ask them about this sort of thing, and they're like, yeah, it takes me about 20 minutes to get a shipment out the door. By the time I collect all the rates and decide who I'm going to go with and create the bill of lading, that can realistically be dropped down to 1 to 2 minutes once you have an experienced user on an LTL TMS. Next slide, please. Okay, so that's my spiel. That's the state of LTL. Why it's valuable to sometimes dip your toes in it and see what's available, and essentially how it works within Banyan. The BrokerPro team is now going to do a very short demo on what it looks like inside of their UI UX.
So I appreciate that, Alex. Say, I'll share my screen. Give me a second. So can you guys see my screen now?
Yes, sir.
Good deal. So inside of BrokerPro, whenever you get signed up with Banyan, say, I actually can help you input the credentials, so I won't go through the setup process. I can handle that for you guys. But as far as just utilizing Banyan within BrokerPro, you guys will have a new option inside of BrokerPro here at the very top of the software under the navigation bar that says LTL here. And you have an option that will say Quick Quote. And when you select this here, you'll have a shipper and consignee spot here. You can set up your load accessorials directly from here as well. So if you need to set up, your pallet jacks or your lift gates, so you can set it up directly from here. You would simply just type in your shipper city, state, and zip code here, as well as the delivery city, state, and zip. And then from here, you're just going to type in your products, whatever quantity it is. So let's say, for example, maybe it was 5 gizmos at, let's say, 50 pounds here. And let's just say it's 15 by 10 by 10. And when you do this, it will automatically select the freight class for you here as well. And you can select the package type. And when you hit Get Quotes here, it will return back those contracted rates for you. And so you can see here I have my Banyan LTL carrier here inside my demo environment. And so if I wanted to from here, I could go ahead and create a load and go book the carrier, or I could just go ahead and save this as a quote and then send this out to my customer. So I'm going to go ahead and hit Save Quote here. It's going to ask me what customer I want to do this for. So I'm just going to say it's BrokerPro Technology. And I'm going to hit Create Quote. And then you'll see that it basically took that quote information that I just set up and it automatically transfers it over into this quote process. So really the only thing I need to do from here is probably set up a pickup date and a delivery date here. And then I can also go ahead and modify some of the pricing if I want to as well. So let's just say on this order in particular, maybe I want to give my customer a $650 quote. And I can save here. Now, if I wanted to go ahead and send this out, I could just go hit this email icon here at the top to send this out, and it will automatically have your customer contact here, or you can type a new customer contact in the to field, and you could just hit send. You could also send and request the e-signature directly from here too if you're using our sign request integration. But if I wanted to go ahead and convert this to an order and book a carrier on this, I could go to convert load here at the very top of the quote and ask me if I want to save my changes, which for some reason, give me 1 second. I bet you money this will work now. I didn't save before I did it. So I can go here at the top and go to convert load. Let me refresh my page real quick. So when I do that, it asks me how many loads I want to convert to. And so I just select the number of loads. So if it was a partial, I could set, multiple from here, or I could just hit 1 if it was just 1 order. And then when I do that, here at the very top, you guys will see that it says quote successfully converted for me as well. So you guys can see now at the very top, now that I've converted this quote into a load, I can go ahead here at the top and hit this LTL quote. And it'll basically go through the same process that you guys just seen before, where it will rate for the rates. And then I can just book the carrier directly from here if I wanted to. So you can see here after I hit book carrier, it will automatically book the carrier for me. So now I got the Banyan demo carrier successfully booked to this load. It assigns the pro number, the shipping label, and the BOL is already successfully attached to this load. So if I needed to see that, I could go to the documents tab here, and here's the Banyan BOL or the shipping label from here. If I needed to open it up, I could just click the little print icon here, and it will actually open it up directly from here. And then like Alex was saying as well, if they signed a proof of delivery like that, it would automatically upload inside of the Documents tab for you as well. It's a really seamless integration as far as kind of the speed to quote or the speed to book a carrier. Say it's a really seamless process from your end. And another thing that I wanted to show off to you guys, because Alex was saying this as well, is another really important thing about LTL in general is a web portal. So we also have a web portal inside of our software that you can give access to your customers. If I can type. And you can see here, this would be BrokerPro Technologies web portal. And so you can give, you know, your shipper access to this, and they would log in and they would be able to see their invoice numbers directly from here. And with our new web portal update, you're actually going to be able to rebrand this as a whole. So if you need to change the logo from here, you can change the logo out. You can change the way the navigation bar looks as well directly from here. Your shippers can click into any one of their invoice numbers here and see more information on it. So if I click on one of these, you'll see it will open it up and it'll look similar to what it is on the load that I just built as well. And so they can print out the bill of lading directly from here if they need to. They can also see any kind of status updates like check calls if you had any. As far as tracking goes, say if you had a tracking integration or just the tracking directly from Banyan like this, it would show up inside the documents or inside the check call tab for you here as well. And they could also see the charges to them through the charges tab. They can also print invoices directly from the top, or they can attach different documents from the documents tab as well. So it's a really seamless experience to the web portal, and we're always improving this. So if you all have any suggestions for us on this, I'm sure we'd love to hear that as well. But that's just kind of a quick rundown of how you would go about creating a quote from Banyan, booking a carrier, and then just a little bit to show off with our web portal here. But I think the next steps of this, Josh, I'm going to open this up and let them ask some questions and see what else they would like to see, and I'll be more than happy to answer any kind of questions you guys have.
Yep, sure thing. And before we do get into the Q&A, did want to let everybody know I published the poll for what we will cover, or what you all would like for us to cover during the next webinar. And so far, Customer Carrier Portal is leading the charge, and did want to let you know that we are getting ready to release a fully revamped version of the WebTrack portal. So if that is of interest to you, I highly recommend that you join that webinar, or just let us know, and we'll be happy to show you a demo separately. But please go ahead and fire away some questions in the Q&A section. Awkward pauses. Does anybody watch the news last night? Anything happen? Okay, well, I guess we have answered all the questions. Everybody's aware of how LTL works inside of BrokerPro, and kind of get a good state of the industry. Thank you, Alex, and from Banyan for helping us with this. Just so everyone knows, we continue to invest heavily into LTL within BrokerPro. We have worked with Banyan very closely. We are continually updating the integration and also our workflows as partners with Banyan. So we are making sure that we're in lockstep together to deliver a great LTL experience for customers, but also a great support experience for our customers. So when things do go sideways, your interactions with Banyan and with BrokerPro are streamlined. How do we get a hold of Alex? What is your contact information, Alex? Is that on one of these slides here?
I think it is actually on one of the slides.
Let me go ahead and share that screen. Thank you for pointing that out. So here's Alex's contact information. If you have any questions for him or for the Banyan team, or just want to talk shop about LTL, he's your guy. If you want to discuss with us how things work with BrokerPro into Banyan, contact me, contact Forrest, Josh at BrokerPro, or Forrest at BrokerPro.com, and we'll rally the troops and corral all the information for you.